So, welcome this afternoon to the Tangerine Africa webinar, and we are focusing on attaining leadership roles in the financial services industry, a Tang women's perspective. First, let me tell you a bit about myself and Tangerine. My name is Yuan Adewisi. I'm the Executive Director Commercial for Tangerine Africa. And Tangerine is a digital services provider that is going the extra mile to improve financial security for our customers, bringing deep insights and cutting edge technology and building tailored solutions and products to improve the quality of our customers' lives and giving them cover. We are a life insurance company, a general insurance company, a health insurance company, and pensions. So we are looking to cover you and protect you through all your important milestones in life, protect you and your family, and make sure you're secure for the future. And on the panel with me this afternoon are my colleagues who are going to be speaking uniquely to their experiences as women in financial services. I will start first with our Chief Technical Officer, Jadisola, and she heads our technical business, and she's had over 21 years of experience in the insurance environment. She is a life insurance specialist and has worked in all matters of life insurance operations, not just limited to business operation, underwriting claims, international and local health insurance, customer service, sales support, and technical support. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Insurance of Nigeria and has a postgraduate diploma and master's from Akindele University in Nigeria. She started her career in IGI, we've got her now, and has an outstanding career where she got exposed to several areas of the life insurance business. Prior to joining Tangerine, she was with UBA Insurance, now UBA Metropolitan Life, and she heads our technical operations in Tangerine in our life business. Welcome, Jade Sola.
Thank you.
Over to my other colleague, Christine Sugrede. She's our group head legal and compliance. She is a seasoned lawyer with over 15 years progressive experience in corporate law, specializing in corporate advisory, private equity, and mergers and acquisitions. She holds an LMB from the University of Lagos and an LLM from the University College London in the UK. She's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association and a member of the International Bar Association. Previous roles, she's had a very accomplished legal career, and we're so pleased to have her as partner at Udo Odoma and Bello Osagie. So we welcome Christine to the panel to share her experiences. And last but not the least is our group head human resources for the group. Darren Otegbola. Darren has worked in various roles, translating business vision into HR initiatives to improve performance. And she has us on our toes, driving profitability, growth, and employee engagement, and providing support to companies and top executives with a unique perspective and appreciation that human capital is every organization's greatest asset. Prior to joining Tangerine, she had recently worked with Talentique as the Director of People Operations and Global Expansion for Africa. She also worked for Andela Inc. as the Country Human Resources Lead. And she had HR operations. She led HR operations at Apex Staffing. So she's driving our people acquisition in Tangerine, Africa, and we're hoping she can share her experiences being a female in the financial services industry. So I want to just give a bit of a backdrop before we jump into the conversation. And what we're finding is that female talent remains one of the most underutilized business resources, and financial services is not one area to be excused for. So over the years, we're seeing a rise. In particular, there's a post I put on my social media handle that Nigeria is the second country in Africa that you're most likely to have a woman as your boss, which is great. So we're just trying to see how what is driving this gender gap in the financial services space, and what is the challenge? What also is the opportunity that we're seeing to narrow this down? And I'm going to first start up with leadership before we drill into financial services as a whole. I would like to call in who would like to start this off? I want to just talk about leadership in general, in terms of when you started your career. and you envisage where you're going, and obviously ultimately you don't start to stay where you are. You want to get to that leadership position when you decide to have a corporate career, or well, even if you have your own business, you want to be the leader in that space. But let's stick with the corporate environment for now. How would you describe a leader? And I'm going to bring in Christina with this. How would you describe a leader?
Okay, thank you. I'd say a couple of things. Before you can lead, you must first learn to follow. Because if you cannot work as part of a team, if you haven't learned to listen to others and implement the ideas of others, it's difficult to lead. So certainly as a leader, you must be able to follow, but you must also be a good listener. Um, Leadership also requires leading by example and leading from the front. So it doesn't work to say do as I say and not do as I do. If you don't show good example, it's difficult to be a leader because ultimately any policies that you set cannot be implemented by the team because really no one is going to buy into and try to implement the vision of that leader. So for me, the three big points will be being a good listener, being able to follow, and also leading by example.
Thank you, Christine. So being able to listen, being able to follow, and being able to lead by example, critical characteristics for someone who wants to get into the leadership space. And in terms of, okay, we've decided, okay, I want to be a leader in the financial services space, of which it is a very broad area, and of which it is also a very demanding area. What would you say would be the key steps you would take and skills you need to acquire over time to become a leader in the financial services space? So I'm going
Okay.
to give that back to you for the minute, and then
Yeah.
just let me know what you think on that.
Yes. So certainly you have to be knowledgeable. You have to be knowledgeable about the financial services space. It's difficult to lead in any sector if you have no knowledge. Now I know that not everyone can be the warehouse of all knowledge. It's just impossible. But certainly you should have some knowledge about the area or the sector that you're going to be taking up a leadership position. So you need to read a lot, you need to do a lot of research, you need to consult with other industry professionals just to keep track of what's going on in your sector. So certainly knowledge is important. Visibility is also important. So it's one thing to have knowledge, and then it's another thing to, as we used to say, hide your candle under a bed because no one will see you and no one will know that you have that knowledge. So it's important to be visible, attend industry events, if possible, speak at industry events, share articles, that would be useful for the people in your community. LinkedIn is a useful tool. Share thought papers, engage with people in the community. That way people know that, okay, you do have the skill set to be a leader in financial services.
So I've taken some nuggets there in terms of one, never stop learning. It's knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. If you're not the subject matter expert or a generalist that speaks confident, like you know what you're doing, you really can't lead because people have to believe in what they're following you. You know, it's like a religion. It's like, I believe in what this person is saying, right? And then you
Hmm.
said visibility, visibility, visibility. You know, I'm not going to know who you are if you're being shy and modest. And we women are very, and I'll say that for free, very guilty of that, where we're being modest. Are you the expert in the room? No, I'm not the expert. I'm just, and the person's talking, you're like, that's not actually right. And we're hiding that. So visibility, share your knowledge, put yourself out there, conferences, speaking opportunities, putting thought papers out there on LinkedIn. It's so great where people can read your expertise as well. So it's not just about hiding because if people don't know you are a leader in your space, how will you even get the role, right? And that's
Hmm.
one. So I'm going to take that to move on to Darren now as our group head HR, and she probably sees zillions of CVs and profiles every day, and she's probably trolling LinkedIn as we speak right now. So in terms of the route to leadership, right? Would you say it's different? It's gender based. Is it different for a man or a woman, or it's all the same? It's just so. What would you say to that?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say it really depends on three main, I guess, criteria. I normally put them in that category because I don't want to have a blanket statement that speaks to everything else. Is the industry, location, and the organization as well. So those three main nuggets is what I always consider. But I'll say now bringing it back to maybe a context of maybe the African continent. My experience is there are variances to, I guess, again, like Christine said, the influence, the clout, or the visibility required. In addition to what she has said, which I would like to focus on, especially bringing it into our, I guess, industry, location, and kind of organizations and financial services, is mentorship and more than anything else, sponsorships. So I've seen that that has significantly helped with ensuring that women do get the sit on table, especially competent women who have the required skills, knowledge, and experience. So mentorship, which is really someone just like pouring into your wealth of knowledge for you to pretty much, I guess, get a good understanding or perform much better on your role, which I like. But more than anything else, what I've seen that's been the number one, I guess, propeller for women in the financial services space, like I said, in the location or the industry we're in, is sponsorship. Someone who is significantly invested in ensuring that you get the visibility, the influence, and the next level cross collaboration experience you need for that kind of leadership role in the organization. So I would say those are like the few things I can mention about that. Yeah, but sponsorship has just worked quite significantly. And as we know, quite a number of people who have really gotten very outstanding leadership roles that really made them visible and at the same time help them with ensuring that women do get a seat on the table through sponsorship and mentorship, or more than anything else, sponsorships.
Okay. So mentorship and sponsorship. And I think it's clear to really be clear about the difference between the two, because some people think that I've got this mentor, they're going to do everything for me. And whereas I can mentor you and not actively do anything for you.
Absolutely.
I'm giving you advice and then I park it there. But sponsorship means any opportunity I think you're going to fit, I'm going to tell you, yeah, Darren's the right person for that. And so everybody needs a combination. And sometimes you can get it in one person, or sometimes
Absolutely.
you can get it in many. And I think you can have several people that serve different purposes in terms of advisory, in terms of mentorship, in terms of industry experts that you just tap into for knowledge, and then in terms of sponsorship, in terms of what are you, and you have to be so specific. I think sometimes people don't realize that, and you can have a mentor that's up, i.e. senior, and someone that's down, or someone at your level, and people forget that as well. So bringing on Jade Sola to the conversation, in your experience, when we're talking about mentorship and sponsorship and trying to achieve this goal of getting to that next spot or that next goal, can you give us an example of where that's been the case for you in terms of you've had this, you wanted a job or you wanted to pivot your career, and that whole mentorship, sponsorship relationship really helps you achieve that? You're you're muted. You're still muted. Okay, there you go. You're fine now. Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, I think the mentorship relationship is very important. It helps the person, to look up to somebody to say, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be, and you walk in the steps of that person. So mentorship really helps to guide the person in the professional world. It helps you to know that the right steps to take, because you look at the person and you're looking at the positive ways and positive behaviors of the person, and you really want to tap into that space, and that will help you to actually grow in your career wise. So I think mentorship is a very great skill for people to have. It's just like holding their hands and growing with them and guiding them right. So I think it's quite important. Thank you.
Yolanda, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry, I was saying that I've muted myself. So, Jess, I was saying in terms of when you decided I want to be this leader in my space in insurance, and you read out your CV, you've done it all, and then you said I'm going to be chief technical officer at an insurance company. What was the mindset that you needed to have to in your career and your life? I mean, you've been in it's over 15 years, so there are different life phases that you've gone through. What would you
Okay.
say was the mindset you needed to get to this point?
Okay, for me, the mindset was really to climb the ladder of success. And for you to climb that ladder of success, you must be professionally driven. You must ensure that you are very, you're a success in every area as the competence. So there's that competence factor. So you hold, if you want to hold that leadership position, because that's what is making me okay. For me to be in that level, for me to grow the ladder of success, I must be very competent. I must know what I'm doing. I must be able to provide and perform in a very standard way so that you can be seen and you can be known. You're doing things in the right way professionally, and that helps you to climb the ladder of success. So it's openness to also change, because as leaders grow, you really want to become more important in that field. Thank you.
So climbing the ladder of success, I took that nugget home, and you need to be professionally driven. I think this is something we need to drive home. You can want to be a leader, but if you're not professional, I dare say you're not going to get very far, because that is what the watchword is, and how you present yourself, how you deliver, how you act. It's got to be clear that you are a staunch professional in all situations, no matter what is thrown at you. I agree with you, Jennifer. You have to have that professionally driven character in all aspects, because that's what everybody's seeing. After they see you as this woman that's really smart and all that, they'll now say, okay, is she professional? And we need to, as women, and I'll say this and I'll throw this to the floor, do we need to be extra professional compared to our male counterparts when we get into the workspace? I'll throw that to Christine. This level of professional excellence, do you think we need to amp it up a notch or two compared to our male counterparts?
Okay, so I think that um, your level of professionalism will always be determined by your personal ethics. So if you have a very strong work ethic, if you're very competitive, then you will be competitive regardless of whether it's a male counterpart or a female counterpart, because you do have some male counterparts who are not necessarily high flyers. Now, competing against somebody who's not a high flyer, you're not doing yourself any favors, you're not doing yourself any justice. So I always start with, you as a leader should have a very, very, very strong work ethic. You should always aim to be the most hardworking, the brightest, the sharpest in the room, regardless of your whether it's male or female counterparts. Now, having said that, there are certain things that are peculiar to women that I should highlight. So, for example, women are usually, not always, but usually the primary caregivers in the home. It's usually women who will take time off for maternity leave. So, because you have these gaps in your work life, if you want to put it that way, it's sometimes important for women to try and catch up. So that's why we sometimes seem like we are working harder than our male counterparts, because we're trying to show that, look, just because I took time off to go and have a baby, it doesn't mean that I've fallen behind. So in that way, it can look like we're working just as hard or even harder, just to ensure that there's no impression that we are falling behind. So I wanted to flag that. But as a leader, you should always be working to show that you're working just as hard, if not harder, than anyone else, whether male or female.
Yes, indeed. So I'm taking a nugget home there, that your level of professionalism is determined by you, irrespective of gender. And you should always seek to for people to see that level of excellence at all times. But then as women, and I think this is a very important point you brought up, is that those career gaps that we take for families and to have a family, you come back and you seem more aggressive or more charged than anybody else, because there's nothing like coming up back to work and you're like, how did he get that? Or how did she get that promotion? I mean, you know how it is, ladies. Let's be honest here on this platform. You come back, it's really painful. You're like, what the? And you stop and you're just like, I got to get back. I got to get back. And so it seems to everybody around you that you're, on this, you're driven beyond anything. And it's because you're like, I was on a trajectory. Something important to me was either taking a break for whatever reason, taking care of family, taking care of your children, having a child, a study break, whatever it is. But you want to come back and you're like, I'm not going to stay stagnant. And so to someone looking at you, you look a bit like, what's wrong with her? Or what's wrong with, whoever, it could be a man as well. But it's that case of, you remember, I don't know, you showing my age here, when you started, let's say you're in banking and you go into the banking school, that first entry point, I'm sure you have it in insurance, that banking school. And so me, Darren, and Jadisola were all in banking school together. We started on the same day. Then suddenly Jadisola has jumped 5 levels because I decided to take a career. But there's nothing more motivating, people. Let's be honest here on this platform. There is nothing more motivating than your mates being much further ahead. So I think we're having an honest conversation this afternoon that we're not hiding what the issue. You've got to know what's driving you. And it's also okay to say, I've gotten to this level and I want to stay there for a bit, because it is hard as you move forward. So I think everybody has to take a personal position in terms of how much pressure can you put on yourself to catch up, or are you not there and you need a break and you'll stay on a particular level for a while, and then when you are ready, in terms of you put all the ducks in a row and support to ensure you can compete with men who don't have so many encumbrances, if I can I don't want to call them encumbrances, but you understand, and things that they're juggling at the same time. So I wanted to take that point on to, at what point should one start seeking to go into top management? So I'm going to go back to our HR lead who sees CVs and she's probably like, why are you applying for this role at this point in your career? So Darren, please let us know, at what point should you start seeking for top management leadership roles?
I would take a different dimension to that question, and that's fine. I think more than anything else, right when you get into the organization, you should start seeking next level cross-functional project-based opportunities. You need to be known, pretty much, and you need to get yourself out there. More than anything else, I think that's the first one. So a lot of, I would say, role expansion, job enlargement. Because for you to have a leader mindset, you need to be able to kind of work with the sacrifices that comes with that. So I would say that, and I guess the second one, which really follows the traditional, I guess, route to next level leadership, is succession planning, understanding your organizational stance when it comes to next level leadership opportunities and succession plans and what it takes to get there. And I would say the third one, more than anything else, is really forging significant, vulnerable relationship with your next level managers. I think, especially for women, it's quite important that you let people know what you're in and about for the long haul. And I think if you have a very good manager or leader, they would appreciate that I'm really here, I'm here for the long haul, but at the same time, I'm here to make a difference. And I think what would give me that kind of visibility in the organization or influence is through certain leadership opportunities. And I'm really happy, test me in one or two that you're part of right now and see how I function in that. And definitely, if you do well, I find it hard that a leader wouldn't give you the opportunity. But I would say, like I said, right off the bat, have a good understanding of what you really want to do and how you want to get there. The second, follow the traditional track that the organization has to succession planning and cross-functional experiences, projects. There's a project that the organization is working on, jumping on there. And the third one is really forging those relationships that really will take you to that next level as well. So, yeah.
Thanks, Darren. So I've taken some nuggets home, and I was reflecting on my career. You've said everything I did. So in terms of whenever there's an opportunity to add to your scope of work, jump at it. It's like, I want to be on that project, be that keynote, if I can use that word, in terms of, because that's how you're getting visibility, and especially on major projects. So, you can get that if it's a very high visibility project, right, where you get to interact with other senior leaders or other people in different cross-functional areas. You're getting that exposure, and exposure is what leads to you getting the next role, right? Because they're like, oh, beyond her core basic analyst role, she has HR experience. She went into that HR project and she was able to show it. So, that's how you pivot into that role. And I like what you said about forging those relationships. I still have relationships with my first bosses till tomorrow. And it was great having those conversations with them in terms of, I want to do this, how do I do it? Or having that acting. When my boss went on her maternity leave, I was made the acting head for the time. And don't take it as, I think sometimes when you see staff, they think it like, why is she giving me all this work? Or why is he giving me all this work? And they don't realize that person sees something in you in terms of, should I test this person to enlarge their scope? Will they be able to deliver at a higher level? Because going up in leadership is broadening your scope. It doesn't get smaller. Yes, you have a team to work with you, but the responsibility is infinitely larger. It keeps getting larger and larger and larger. You can't become the leader and it gets smaller, right? So I think
That's
that's so
important.
important.
I think it's important what you just said as well is something that I think as women, like bringing it back to us as women is let us try to accumulate, or, as I have a boss who always say, bag it in as soon as you can. Because, life happens where when you're, I guess, single, or you're not childbearing age, or you don't have children, then you can really go for those next level stretch projects.
Exactly.
However, you not get married and that changes. So she always told me that, and I think that did tremendous. Like, I traveled all over the world just looking for the opportunities that I really liked, and I could really function in different part of the organization I was a part of, because I didn't have those, family related, like not challenges, family related, life that
Yeah.
would really hinder
Responsibilities, family related
responsibilities.
responsibilities. That's
Yeah.
it, family related responsibilities.
Yeah.
Now, there's a contentious question I'm getting here. But before I get to that, going back to you, Darren, are women creating the future of finance? And I'm going to go around the room. Are women creating the future of finance?
I would say I'll take that question from two different perspectives. Are we creating the future of finance when it comes to, are we like the number one major consumer when it comes to financial services right now? I would say yes, we're really driving that market. I would say women are. But are we driving the future of finance when it comes to, I guess, organization or perception of what life should be in financial services and working in there? I would say not quite. Just my perspective, not quite, because really when it comes to changing the future of something, you have to look at who are the major key stakeholders or the major players on the table. And I would say we're looking at the African continent right now. We're making a significant difference, but as we can all tell, the male counterparts are still like making major strides and also having the majority seat on the table. Hence, our visibility and influence is not felt as much as I would like them to.
Okay, Jada, so same question to you. Are women creating the future of finance?
I think Jadisola is
I think
frozen.
she's frozen at the moment. Okay, I'm going to move to. Okay, there she. Jada, are
Okay,
you there?
yeah. Okay, so for me, I can agree with Darian as well. Yes, women are, creating more in the visibility. Women, if you look around in Nigeria, you see quite a number of women in the financial world. They're the MDs of banks. You see, there was a time they had quite a number of review, and they found out that majority of the women are now in the financial services, and they're actually leading very well. So I think women are creating that visibility, and when they create that visibility, is strengthening their personal brand. A lot of women have kind of personal brand now if you want to really be in the financial world. So I think I agree that women are in that financial world. They have that visibility, they have that brand, they're using the brand to grow. So I think, yes, I agree with that word. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, women, are we the future of finance?
I think we are slowly but surely getting there. So historically, finance was really a boys' club. All the bank MDs, all the financial services companies, the MDs are historically men, but that's changing. So I vividly remember when Ibuku Oshika was named chair of First Bank. I mean, everywhere, the entire industry was shaking because people were like, wow, that's a woman, that's a woman. And, she wasn't even necessarily like an organic banker. And she just came and she was made chair, and she did wonderful things at during her tenure at First Bank. So it's suddenly changing. And then in 2021, if you followed the news, there were so many females that were being named as bank CEOs. So I think even the market is recognizing the fact that women are making excellent leaders. And so there's a shift that's happening But it's also up to us women to keep the momentum going, because all it takes is one woman to fail. Never mind all the men who failed before her.
Yes,
But when one
indeed.
woman fails and then everyone goes, oh, you see why we didn't want to give it. So I mean, the bar is set a little bit higher for women, but we're capable anyway. So all we just need to do is keep the momentum going. But are we going to become the future eventually? I think that it can happen. I think it can.
All right. So I'm going to go back to Darren's point. In terms of, she said, are we as women consuming more financial services, right? So if financial services, especially us, we on this call are in non-bank financial services, finance is more than just money. And I think, how should we talk about what we do in terms of Tangerine, in terms of we're a risk, if you look at risk products, but how are we making a difference through our sector, right? In terms of, and how are we as women in the product development cycle bringing our attributes in terms of thinking about reach and how the product makes sense to the market? Because I think we bring a different lens to the room that our counterparts wouldn't. So, in terms of how the access to financial services, in particular our space, in terms of the insurance space and protection, how do you think women are influencing that product development cycle? And I'll take that to Jade Sola because she's my guy in the office. So, in terms of products, so and how we are positioning them. So, Jade, what do you think about that? Do we bring a different lens into how we are making sure insurance is getting to the last mile, and especially for women, and how the products look and feel? Is she there? Jade, did you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't get that question very
I was
well.
saying
I
in terms
think
of,
I
are
was,
we as women bringing a different, so of course, finance is more than money. And in
yeah.
particular, in our sector, we're in the non-bank financial services. So we're definitely not necessarily about money. Of course, you have to pay for our products and services, but we're not about money, savings, and a bit of savings, but we're not about that. We're more about protection. So when we are in the room in the product development process, do you think we come with a different lens in terms of how the product should look and feel that will make sure there's adequate reach, that it speaks to women or to a larger population? Therefore, we're bringing that unique perspective in terms of how we should develop and manage our products out there.
Okay, for me, I think when you see women in a room, there's that different among the rest. Because when you want to actually even bring a product, they have that, should I say, they have the managing skills, they have the organizing skills, they have the leadership skills. So women have, and also they have the ability to, build good relationships. So they bring up that kind of skills they have, the management skills they have at all levels, and they bring it to give the best of the product, because they have experience. A lot of women have different kinds of experience, so they look at all the experience they've gained, they look at the planning, they look at the organizing skills, and they look at the leading skills, and they use all that to bring out about good products. Because women also have this kind of multitasking skills, that they know that, okay, I have done this, I know this product will work, we know where it's coming from. So I think women actually bring all the managing skills, all the managing skills to ensure that a product comes out best. They look and feel, they can actually tell you how a product should look, they can tell you the customer's needs, because you're women, you know that women know, yes, are you meeting the client's needs? So they tell you that this is the customer's needs, so let's meet what the customer wants. So I think women are better in that areas for me.
Thank you, Jody. So it's really about connecting with the client. It's not just about putting out a product that makes no sense to anybody, but we're hoping for the best when you put it out there. It's about really connecting with how it's solving a problem, how it's easing one's life, and especially in our business, in terms of you're protecting someone's future, right? In terms of something happening, whether it's death, whether it's planning for school fees, whether it's planning for your holiday, anything could happen, right? So you just want to make sure you're covered in terms of your home insurance and how you relate it, because obviously our cultural nuances here. we would say it's not likely to happen, especially our business, right? It's supposed to just, why am I paying for that? And eventually that it might not happen. But let me tell you, the uptake after the, when you're saying, I was talking to a friend prior to that incident in Lagos of the fire, and she said, I would never get fire insurance, you know what I mean, for her business. And I was like, why? She said, it's nothing's going to happen. It's going to be fine. And then the next day was that thing. I've never seen someone call me so fast, because it's just about making it relatable. So when we're putting the products out there, we have to show that it might not happen, but it could. So wouldn't it be better to be protected against that? And we do that day to day with our families, right? We're always having that plan B for the family. And I think we need to extend that to other parts of our lives, and especially taking care of ourselves in terms of our businesses, our health, and whatnot. So we need to have that. We always have a plan B, and the plan B should be insurance, really and truly, whether it's health, life, general, whatever we're pushing out there. But in terms of insurance is the backup plan, right? Should anything.
I was going to say a quick point to what Jadisola just said that I think is quite imperative to that seen happen, like what you just said with your friend is, because a lot of women are becoming very, very financially independent. You can demand of the kind of products and services that they do get.
Exactly.
Prior to, it's always been where, maybe a significant partner or spouse kind of makes that decision. But now that, my money is in it, then I can demand a whole lot more from what you're offering. So I think that has significantly helped propel like a female perspective or dimension towards products and services that Tangerine offers, where women actually now sit on the table, really telling us how we can either tweak or make some of our products and services better, because they are the ones really even investing their own personal resources into those things.
I love that women in the driving seat of making decisions around their financial success, right, and their futures. So that will influence the type of products and services we have to put out there. And I'm going to put Christine on the spot. This is really, I said I was going to ask a contentious question, and I'm seeing it here, and I'm like, who put that on the question board? Is there an age range? Like, I'm seeing us out here, we're all pretty young, so I'm thinking this is going to be an interesting conversation for us to have here. Is there an age range for a top management position or leadership position? And I'll take it to Christine, and I'll go back to Darren, our viewer. So yes.
Okay, you're right. It is a contentious question, and my answer to that is no. There's no age range, but there are caveats to that response. So you always have to look at the dynamics of a situation, right? So first of all, regardless of age, there's a certain level of maturity that's required, and in order to hold any leadership position. And some people mature, they have the emotional intelligence, they have the maturity, they can hold their own, and they're not even 30. But then you have some people who are in their 40s who are still trying to find their way. So it really, really depends on the level of maturity that that person has. So that's one caveat. The second caveat is you have to look at the organization, you have to look at the culture, and you have to look at the jurisdiction. I'm sorry to say, because you find that in countries like Nigeria or even continents like Africa, where people are very big on respect. Again, it goes back to the point where if everyone in leadership is in their 40s, in their 50s, and you throw someone in there who's in their 20s, then unless the person has a really high level of emotional intelligence, who's really mature and knows how to handle themselves in situations, you'll find that that 20-something-year-old might struggle as a leader of people who are so much older. Maybe somebody in their 30s or 40s might be able to be okay, might be able to survive okay. But somebody who's really young, it might cause problems. So you always have to look at the dynamics of the organization. You need to take cultural considerations always come into play. And then the emotional intelligence and the maturity of that person. And if you look at some of the young CEOs doing great, fabulous things, some of the young CEOs in tech, they're doing great. I'm certainly a young woman, and I'm also in leadership, but that's also because I've shown, and some of these things are they're provable. It's not hypothetical. People would have seen you in situations. They would have seen that, okay, this person is mature, this person has emotional intelligence, this person is wise. So they would have seen how you are, they'd have interacted with you, and then they will be able to give you that opportunity. So again, this goes back to the point about being visible internally in your organization and showing that, look, you do have the skill set, the soft skills now to be a leader, even if you're young. So yeah, so that's the point I'm making.
Fantastic. So I'm going to recap a few points you made out there. First, the culture of the organization will determine whether that you even get that opportunity anyway. But if you do get the opportunity, you need to demonstrate maturity. Emotional intelligence, EIEQ is very important, and how you handle yourself. My mom used to say, it's how you sit on the chair is how they're going to receive you. If everybody knows that statement. If you don't sit firm on the chair, they're going to treat you like a kid. But if you sit firm, like I belong there, I think it's not with an attitude. That's not what I mean at all. I hope people get what I'm saying. It's just a case of, look, I deserve to be in that chair. I'm experienced enough. I know what I'm doing. I know how to manage people. I know how to manage relationships, and that is important in terms of that aspect of being a young leader at all. I remember my first time when I entered a room, and everybody was like at least 10 years older than me, and I felt like but you sat. I just remember what my mom kept telling me. It's how you sit on the chair. You walk in there. So all the contacts and funky hair had to go. I had to change up, switch it up. So everybody doesn't know that sometimes it's how you look as well. You have to package yourself accordingly. And I always tell some of my younger colleagues, you know how you came to that meeting? You're causing me to think of you as a younger member of the team, because if you were a bit older, you would know not to dress that way to come to this meeting, but or how you sat in the thing, like that, it's just not the thing. So I think we owe that to a lot of our colleagues, to tell them, you got to look the part, you got to dress the part. It's all part, everything's part of it. You're being judged as soon as you come in, and it's even so. Add young plus female, you can imagine judgment score like 1,000. So I think that's really important. I bring that back to Darren. What do you think in terms of this age and leadership positions?
Gosh, you definitely took it there. So I think going back to the question on leadership, does age really matter? It happens all the time. People ask me that question. I would want to answer like maybe a little different perspective, in the sense that maybe I'll take you more to is I guess the first thing is really looking at that's what research has said. Research has given us two different perspectives when it came to I think it was like by Psychology Today a couple of years ago. I think it was Frank Walter and Susan Skip that did the research, and they kind of identified some relevant findings. So when it came to like tax getting work done, which is I think it was called tax oriented behaviors, younger and older leaders, they kind of appear to be equally effective. So in that case, age didn't really matter or influence a leader's willingness to step up. However, though, what they did see at that point is age just seemed to affect a leader's openness to change. So that's what research had said at that point. So as leaders grew older, I guess they became less willing to make changes and then less interested in innovation. So I think there's another research by Vincent Baker as well that kind of proved that. So now bringing it to, like Christine has said, is the organization, which the culture in the organization, how does it really treat younger leaders as opposed to those who have a longer wealth of experience, which I'll call the older folks. Number one. Number two also is the kind of industry you're in. What kind of statutory or regulatory nuances affect you? Are they saying you have to be in the financial services industry for 8 to 20 years before you can get certain leader or principal level roles? So invariably, that has put like a barrier to entry for that kind of leadership ability. And you brought up a very good point that I really like as well is really, how our parents always say, scan the environment. If the kind of leader, people might call it imposter syndrome, but not necessarily. Before you really establish yourself and get really comfortable, you have to always get stakeholder management and buy-in. Get in there, see how it's done, then now you can now have that perception or that kind of innovative mindset to really make a change. But most times when you come in, especially with leaders, we're all leaders, when people come in and almost shoving down innovation or change down our church, we don't normally take it. But when someone comes in and tries to understand the nuances of what we're doing to make things better, then they can now recommend change that are now adaptive or adopted. I think that really helps as well. So I just thought I'll bring that perspective towards the question. Sorry, it's all everywhere, but at the same time.
No, it's fantastic. So I'll recap for everybody. I think that what you did say was scan the room.
Yes.
That is so important. Don't come in there with attitude, I would say attitude, but two, and, you have to really understand the nuances of what's going on in the space, get that buy-in. If they're thinking of you as young, you need to go one by one. I go around whenever I start, and Darren will testify. I went around the organization and I went to meet every single person one by one to understand, how can I help you? I'm here. What can I do to support you in what you're doing? And that's what, when you take that, it's almost like, I always say, I'm happy to kneel down for anybody who it will help me move my mandate forward, right? It takes nothing out of me to do that. Collaboration, finding that place of connection is so important. You can't come in as an island, and then you're even younger. So you're definitely coming in as someone that they didn't know. They didn't, like I said about starting in the banking school together, you weren't in the school. So so they don't have that connection to you, but you need to find those connections and make sure that they see the value you're bringing and how you are going to positively add to the team. And just, but like you said, read the room, scan the room, find ways to connect with your stakeholders. And I'm going to take it to Jade Sola right now, because we said something about we're can we all say we're leaders here in this conversation? Now that you're a leader, right? Clap for yourself. So it's all good. But when you get to that position, what do you think you should constantly be doing to make sure, like Darren mentioned just now, the differences between young leaders and older leaders in terms of innovation and support, ready for change. We don't want to get comfortable. We not go out there, and there's still positions for us to go up to, right, or whatever. But now that you're a leader, what do you think you have to keep doing constantly, reminding yourself what are you doing as a leader? You're there, right? What are you doing?
Okay, for me as a leader, what you need to constantly do, number one, you need to ensure that you increase your efficiency and effectiveness. So you need to be more efficient, more effective. You need to also, go in the space of coaching and developing people. As leaders, you just don't want to be in that position by yourself. You need to look at who can you coach, who are the people you like to develop. You need to ensure that you monitor your performance. So there are times you need to sit back and say, where am I? What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? You need to monitor your performance. And I think another way is that you need to increase your visibility. So you need to enhance yourself. You need to strengthen your personal brand as a leader. When you show up, you need to show up with energy to increase your visibility. You need to ensure that you are engaging. People get to know you more, you engage more. And you just remember that you have a full range, because all you need to do is to ensure that there's that skills that you keep learning every day. You just don't want to stop learning. They said the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. So you need to ensure that you improve yourself every day. Learn a skill a day to improve your knowledge you have. And if you have the skills that you're not using your current position, you need to look for opportunities to keep practicing that skills. So it's very important. You need to ensure that you're planning, you're organizing, you're leading very well. Leading, and people are looking up to you. You have that you know, you have the passion for the job, you have the leadership skills. But what are you mentoring? What are you coaching? And with that, it helps you to grow more and say, okay, yes, I'm going through the right path. Thanks.
Fantastic. I got some serious nuggets from Jade's summary just now in terms of what you should do. I've got to write some down because I know I've dropped the ball on some of them. So, growing that efficiency and effectiveness. Don't get comfortable in the seat. You've really got to keep on your A game. And also thinking about the next gen. I think it was Darren or Christine that mentioned in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? Building that capacity. Succession planning. Sorry, excuse me, everyone. So is the next, if you want to go on a holiday for 3 months, who is there that can sit that in, and then you don't have to be picking up your phone? Are you building the team of your dreams that after you leave, you know that I am confident that James, John, and Jill can run this team. They don't need me to be there. They're going to be fantastic. So that coaching and developing people is because some people like to hog all the knowledge and act like they're going to be there forever. And I think that is such a bad way to be a leader. You need to build your team. They need to be able to replicate. It's like you've duplicated yourself and even made them better than you. So we have to be very conscious of that and monitoring yourself, reevaluate, have that time to just evaluate, where am I? What skills do I need to develop? Where did I, where could I have done things better? Because we're not perfect, right? You have situations and you have to self-reflect. And I think self-reflection is so important as a leader because you then can adapt accordingly, upskill accordingly, figure out how to improve a relationship accordingly, and that sort of thing. And I think the whole thing about increasing your visibility. So now that you've gotten there, you just can't get comfortable because you can also get lost in that. And it's all the only thing constant in life is change, right? So increasing your visibility is so important. Continuing finding ways to stay, I don't want to use the word relevant, but maybe that is it. Staying relevant, being top of your game, and continue to be seen as a subject matter expert. So on that point, I'm going to ask Christine, because you did bring it up earlier about visibility. What are the practical steps? Like we've been saying visibility, visibility, visibility. So in case someone wants to take cliff notes down and say, how do I increase my visibility? And I'll say two aspects. When you're rising the ladder and now that you're at the top of the ladder, how do you maintain that visibility?
Okay. So a couple of tips some that didn't even exist when I was climbing the ladder, but which exist now for me as a leader. So, LinkedIn, social media, I would say, is such a useful tool. And it really doesn't take a lot to write an article and post it on social media. Now, I know there are nuances. So, for example, if you work in an organization and you're writing an article on the organization, then obviously you need to get that cleared internally. But if you're writing a thought piece on maybe a new legislation that has been issued, for example, you write that, you put it on social media, and then you're good to go. That's one example. Another example is your connections. So it's one thing to have a bunch of people who are not relevant to your industry as your social media connections, but it's a completely different thing to have people who are relevant to your industry. And again, it goes back to the point about being intentional about the people that you're engaging with. So engage with people on social media. If you see somebody else who's a thought leader is posting stuff, like their posts, ask them questions, ask questions. Some of the people who I have recommended for roles are people who reached out to me to ask me a question about how to structure a deal, for example, and got my thoughts. And then in the future, I remembered them and said, oh, yes, this person engaged with me on this topic. I think she has the skill set. Nobody will remember you if you're sitting down, if you're quiet, you're not writing any articles. If you don't write any articles, nobody will know, or you will know that you have any knowledge on the subject matter. So there's that. Now, there's also confidence. I can't stress it enough because sometimes women we deal with two issues. So we deal with the fact that we don't want to be thought of as loud or as aggressive. So there's that. And then we also worry about whether we're good enough. Look, forget all of that. Forget all of that. If you are in a meeting and you have something to say, speak up. I remember when I first started my career, I dealt with some fears. I dealt with if I talk, what if I'm wrong? What if they say I'm talking rubbish? But the truth is, the men in the meeting, they will talk their rubbish with confidence. And sometimes they're wrong. They say the thing, and it is wrong in fact, and it is wrong in law or regulation or whatever it is you want to call law, wrong in the research. And if you don't speak up, first two things will happen. First of all, everyone is going to leave that meeting with wrong information. And two, you're quiet throughout the meeting. Nobody will remember who you are. Nobody will remember your name. So it's important to speak up. Now, having said that, it is not every time that as women you go yammering on about something. There's a time to speak up and there's a time to keep quiet. And as you grow, you will assess the situation and know when it's important to speak up. But if you have an opportunity, as people say these days, you need to shoot your shots. Otherwise, you will leave and you will regret saying anything. So for me, in terms of how to gain visibility, if you have written an article somewhere, share it on social media. That's how people will know you're a thought leader. Make connections, engage with people, call people on the phone, send people emails, connect on social media, like articles, like posts, topical things, things that are relevant to your industry. There's a lady on social media, Busaya Balogun. People who are in corporate governance will know her. She's constantly sharing stuff. The Nigerian Stock Exchange has done this, and she shares stuff not just relevant to Nigeria, but relevant to other jurisdictions. All of a sudden, she's now a thought leader in the area. And I happen to know her. She's now Messiah Augusto. And I happen to know her, and I remember thinking, wow, when did she become a thought leader? But you see, she has stuck in my brain because I see what she's doing. So it's important. Speak up, share information and engage with information that will show that you are a thought leader, that will enhance your visibility and make connections. I think those would be my three nuggets.
Fantastic. So increasing what I took home from what you just said, and I know it's a term, but it's about building your personal brand, right? And you have to be very deliberate about it, very consistent about it, and you find that people who are deliberate and consistent become thought leaders. When you drop a post every now and then, drop a few nuggets when you feel like it, you can't become a thought leader because a thought leader is consistently putting out information that's related to their work to show I'm an expert or subject matter, I know about this topic. And in from different, like what you said, in terms of creating that content. So there's a note, like, in terms of what I do, in terms of looking for brand, how are you positioning your brand? Not just, from insurance product, now it's about you. So the posts need to be relevant, and you have to be careful how you mix your personal social media with your professional social media. And I think it's so important. I mean, you can have a page that is your Instagram or whatever, that's super fun, right? To your personal connections, and then you close it, right? I mean, so you can be a complete fool in that particular page. But the one that's open, especially when you're trying to build a professional brand, you have to curate it. So you cannot just go out there willy-nilly posting all sorts of stuff that you feel like. I remember in my previous role when I was in BBC, I could not post any political anything. No matter how I wanted to post, no, because it might be mistaken that I'm taking it from a BBC position. So all that time, I did not post anything like that. Now, if I feel like it, obviously I'll knock myself down and post whatever I like. But at that time, you have to think about how are you perceived? How does this relate to your career and your position? Now that you're a leader, you really have to be conscious about it. And sometimes you do have to lock the page and make it private. It's not about everybody seeing, everybody's knowing your friend on social media. So you need to be careful how you're doing that. And you can have different profiles for different things. You can have Yewande the Law, like Christine the Law, which is about her saying she is the de facto person to go to in legal matters. But when Christine wants to be Christine 81 hashtag whatever whatever, she posts whatever she wants, and that's about her personal life. So I think that is so important. And about the speaking up, knowing when to, there's a time for everything, right? We all know that song and the part of the Bible. You need to know when it's time to talk and when it's time to be quiet and just listen and observe. So that's really important in terms of that sort of personal branding building and the confidence with which you put yourself out there to say, I'm a thought leader in anything that you want to do. So I'm looking through the chats. I haven't seen any questions, but I was hoping that people would throw them in, but I haven't. I've scrolled up and down loads of comments that's saying they love the conversation is great and they're enjoying it. But I don't know if anybody has any questions they want to drop into the chat at this point. Time for questions and answers. Mhm. Um, so any questions you guys want to pose to the panel out there, audience? Or we've just been so excellent, there are no questions, which is also good too. I've seen a comment from Akitia. I agree, sharing information is so important for connecting with your existing and potential customers and clients, which is very true, what we're saying about showing that you know what you're talking about. But a private chat, let's see here. Okay. So while we're waiting for questions to come through, I'm just going to go through which was going to be my final question, but I might switch it up. Women in finance, is the future bright for us? That's where I wanted us to probably close out. I'm conscious of time. We've got 10 minutes. I want everybody to speak to that. Finance is such an ever-changing space. You've got innovation happening left, right, and center, new things coming up every day. Especially in this world of tech, where one minute once you've understood crypto, there's now decentralized finance. There's not this. There's not. So you have to just be on top of your game. So, but would you say, as a woman in finance, the future is bright? And would you tell people that, yeah, I made the right decision to be a woman in finance? Let me start with Jadi. Jadi, are you there? Are you frozen? Okay,
Okay,
you're there.
sorry, yeah, I'm home now. For me, what do you tell people then want to develop themselves in finance? The first thing is number one, to innovate. Identify and document like 3 new ideas to achieve better results in your area. So you need innovation for you to be, every time you need to think out of the box. What can you do differently? You need to have top new ideas to achieve better results in all aspects of your finance world. Have that. For me, and secondly, you need to execute. You need to implement the new ideas that you have noted and any innovations that come to mind. So execution is very important. You can't overemphasize that. Once you innovate your ideas, you identify your top 3 ideas that you need to execute. Then you need to grow, achieve significant measurable progress area of influence. You need to help yourself to grow. Growth in every area. Demonstrate signs of growth. You demonstrate signs of winning. So I think those 3 areas: innovation, execution, and growth. It's very important for me. Thank you.
Apologies. I was muted for a second. I was saying the future is bright for women in finance if they innovate, they grow, and there was a third one, but I can't read and execute. Execution, execution, execution. You
Execution.
can't just talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk and execute. Christine, the future is bright for women in finance. Hit it. Tell us.
Absolutely. Look, the future is bright. As Jade Salah said, innovate. Women, I think, are natural innovators because we were constantly thinking about how to improve a process. There's always a better way to do things. So we already have that natural ability. But no, we don't stay in we don't get stuck in comfort zones as easily. So certainly there's a future for women in finance. Women are also constantly thinking about how to create things. So even if there's no gap, women will look at something and decide, actually people need this product. So again, there's this space, there's a future for women in finance. As long as we continue to innovate, as long as we continue to create, as long as we continue to work as hard, have a strong work ethic, as long as we remain confident, as long as we speak up, as long as we remain visible, we will always have a future in finance.
Fantastic. And Darren, future is bright for women in finance.
I would say absolutely. So, sorry, I like to go to research. So I've done a lot of reading, and the S&P Global, I think it was in March of 2019, has spoken about how the financial future of financial future is female. I think that was an article that come out, and I think they spoke about like different nuances why that was the case. They spoke about women are transforming financial markets and economies across the globe, and I think there was 3 major criteria they talked about. I think the first one was the risk tolerance that women have, confidence, and the willingness to invest. I think even COVID-19 was really proof the very last factor, which was the willingness to invest. And if I'm not mistaken, they had actually said as well that I think they said in 2022 there was going to be about 72 trillion in private wealth. that women are going to be contributing to the financial services market. So the future is, financial services is definitely female. And like Christine said as well, we are really driving the financial services product and services. And when you're driving that market, then definitely you are on the table making the decision and a key stakeholder in how that the products are rolled out and how you enjoy the products and services that come out. So yes, I would say the future is female. Research is showing that, and more than anything else, investment in different global markets is showing that as well.
Great. So I'm taking home from Christine, innovate, innovate, innovate. This is what Jade said. And from Darren is that we've got a higher risk tolerance from us, and we're also willing to make the investment that's required. I'm going to jump back to this topic of the future is bright for women, right, in finance. But I've got finally some questions at the end of the webinar. But never mind, I'm going to take them real quick. And could our tech team tell me in the private chat how much time I actually have? Because in reality, I think it's 4 minutes. But just let me know if I can do a little bit more. We've got some really important questions that I think we should address here. So there's a question here. How do you connect for mentorship with key leaders in your sector? Oops. Now the questions are coming fast and furious and it's moving. Hold on. Sorry. How do you connect for mentorship with key leaders in the sector? I'd like to be a great actuary in the future, but not sure about the way to go about it. What's your opinion on how to get started? I'm going to go to Darren on that question. So what do you think? He wants to be a great actuary. How does he connect with a mentor in that space?
I must say two different dimensions that could be taken. The first one is you can solicit for internal mentorship in the organization that you're part of. I would say that's the first one. Even if your organization doesn't have like a mentoring or mentorship initiative, you can reach out to an HR individual for that to help you kind of facilitate that mentorship relationship that you have. And the second one is, which I know has helped quite significantly, is LinkedIn. I have heard different people who have solicited or not solicited, but reached out to individual on mentorship opportunities on LinkedIn as well. And I think that a mentorship can come in different ways and different variances. It might just be that the person can give you that visibility, or can even, like I had one once early in my career where I always wanted to be centered around organizational culture, employee experience. And there's someone on LinkedIn that was doing exactly that. I just asked her, how did you get there? And she shared resources. I think that's what's very important, because at that time, organizational culture transformation wasn't really a big thing, but she was doing it. And I think she had a business that was doing that as well. So she gave me resources. So that's what kind of mentorship that she provided. She wasn't really going to be available for a check-in every other month, but she just gave me the resources. And maybe I think once a year or any other time we connected on LinkedIn, she was checking on progress and giving me the visibility that's required. So I would say the first route is looking your network, which LinkedIn is a big way for you to get that done. And the second is in your organization that you're part of. Hopefully you have a very good HR team that can help facilitate that. And also most times for certain leadership levels, knowledge sharing and knowledge transformation or knowledge transfer might be part of the KPI for that leader. So that individual is forced to really make a difference in their team. So I would say that's some of the angles you can take that.
One, LinkedIn. We've been linking in all afternoon. We're on LinkedIn right now. Two, the HR structure.
Yes.
It's there for a reason. Exploit the resource and ask, who can I speak to on and developing your actuarial skill or whatever skill you're trying to grow in the career direction you want to take. And three, in terms of it's someone's KPI to pass that knowledge on to you. So you better just tap into that.
Tap into it.
Tap into it as much as you'd like. So we are keeping it real this afternoon, and we've got some real questions coming up here. So this one's quite, deep. So how do you cope when you find yourself amongst colleagues that are taking your confidence and speaking up as being proud or knowing too much? So I'm going to go back. Christine said we've got to be confident. So how do you deal with people who are trying to rain on your sunshine and make you try and put you in a place that you don't belong? So how would you tell her how to handle this?
Okay, so again, the tricky, hard questions. There's something I always say. Self-assessment and self-awareness are very important. Now, breaking it down, you have to be able to tell yourself the truth. If you can't tell yourself the truth, then you need to have trusted people that you can rely on who will tell you the truth. Where am I going with this? If you find yourself in that sort of situation, you need to sit back and reflect on what they're saying and ask yourself, is there any truth in what is being said? Now, if it's not true, ladies, own your own and keep it moving. You can't allow yourself to be distracted by the noise because guess what? There are men that they say the same thing about, and the men don't care. Once they have looked, even some men they have reflected, they know they are being brash, they know they are being aggressive, and they keep it moving anyway. They don't care. So as a woman, if you've reflected on it and you know that you truly are simply being confident, simply being assertive, you're not being rude, you're not being nasty, then you need to block out the noise and keep it moving. And if you know that you cannot conduct that self-awareness in an honest manner, then you need to ask people, trusted people, to tell you how you are coming across. And if you are coming across it in the wrong way and you're uncomfortable with how you're coming across, then you do need to make some adjustments as required. But ultimately, self-inflection, self-reflection, self-awareness, those are very, very important because it goes back to the point about emotional intelligence, right? If you if you're coming across as unduly nasty, mean, aggressive, it comes a time when they're trying to consider you for a leadership position, and the feedback will be, well, should they bully? We don't want a bully in this leadership position. So you owe it to yourself to ensure that you're constantly improving yourself and making yourself better, just so that you whenever you are called upon these sort of small, soft, unnecessary issues, are not counting against you. If you see what I mean. Don't know if that answered the question.
I think it did because the question was someone's trying to, I'm confident, and we said you've got to be that to get into a leadership role, but they're trying to rein on that confidence. So, like you said, 2 points that I've taken home from you, what you said. One, go and really have an honest conversation with yourself. Are you really what they're saying? And we need to really, sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's not. Secondly, you've got to then also have some trusted confidence. Micro people are back from school, so this is actually happening to leader.
I saw it.
So that's real with the leadership and working from home. So
And
secondly, mhm.
something to add, sometimes there's office gossip, right? And it's important to not allow yourself get distracted by office gossip, especially when you're a high flyer. When you're a high flyer, the chances are that office gossip is exactly that. You can't allow that to derail you emotionally because women, let's face it, a lot of us are emotional beings. They say something about you once, you climb up, you retreat into your shell, you stop being a high flyer, you're not doing yourself any favors. So sometimes it's important to recognize office gossip as exactly that, gossip.
Recognize gossip is gossip and park it in one corner. Don't get distracted. Focus on your focus. I always like to say, focus on your focus. You want to be a leader, you can't be listening to the noise. It's a distraction. Park it somewhere and keep it moving. Keep it moving, ladies out there, and everybody, but ladies in particular, because we are more emotional beings than our male counterparts. So we need to do that. There's a question that came through that someone's asked me a question. I talked about duplicating yourself to your subordinates. And in case where your juniors are not willing to accept change, how do you go about that? Look, okay, this is a very tough one. First of all, if like I think Christine said at the beginning of the conversation, listen, follow, lead by example. When you're leading by example, you're getting buy-in. You can't force it. Either people are absorbing what you're putting out there positively or they're rejecting it. There's no like middle ground really. It's either I'm for you or I'm not really for you. And then when you're putting that out there in terms of building capacity, because the reason why as a leader you're building capacity, you want to take annual leave. You want to be able to leave the job or anything. You want to, have space, and you want to know that you're not going to come back and all hell breaks loose. That is why you're building capacity in your team. You want to make sure that you don't come back and have to be answering 5 million questions because your team wasn't able to deliver. In many organizations, that's a poor rating on you because that means you did not develop your team. I have a cousin in Shell that she told me when she didn't take leave and she didn't, and if she answered an email while on leave, she got a query because you haven't developed your team. So, I mean, she's gotten to a very high up level, but you must have people that can do that sort of work. And so the question was, why are you answering the email? I'll never, even in BBC, they'll ask you, why are you answering an email? You're on leave. Your out of office is on. Why are you answering the email? What's the problem? Your people aren't capable. So we have to make sure when you're having resistance to that, that is a KPI issue on that person that you have to recognize because that means they're the weak link in the team. So if you've tried coaching, like Jadisola mentioned, you've tried training, you've tried, even using personal, conversations to say, we're doing this so that the team is stronger and you're still getting resistance. That is a problem that you need to recognize. The person is not for the team. The team now has a weak link. When you now go and leave as a leader, it's likely that person that's not adapting and learning other people's roles, what the team is about. It's going to give you a problem. Watch it and see. You'll find that person is a person that they'll say, you one day, why you on leave, huh? This thing happened. You need to fix it. And you're like, when you look at who is responsible for that thing, it's the person that didn't buy into the team ethos in terms of excellence first. Ask a question when you need to ask it. If you need help, get it from someone else. Make sure that the chain doesn't break because all of us together are successful. One person drops the ball, we're all failing together. I'm always about we're all failing together. Nobody's a superstar on their own. So that is something you have to learn how to manage as you become a leader because you have to make sure that you recognize as much as you're developing people and trying to get people's buy-in, when you do have a weak link, you have to make a decision in terms of, not sure about this. Not that you do it from date the first exhibition. Try and build them up, find other resources, get another person to maybe talk to them, coach them. Maybe they don't like your style, but you're still the leader. You're not abandoning the job for them, but you're going to build that capacity. But when it's still persisting, you have to draw a line as a leader in that space. I'm just checking on if there are any more questions. Okay, I'm going to give us one last question since we answered the issue about the future for women and finance. The future is bright. That was my closing. Someone's asked, what advice would you give to your 25-year-old self? So I'm going to go around the virtual room and ask this question. Okay, who's Jadi Sola is looking at me like, yeah, give me that question first. Jadi Sola, what advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Okay. The first advice I'll give to a 25-year-old, number one, communicate more. You need to realize that the most important aspect is communication. You need to communicate more to understand what is happening in your environment. Another one is you need to attract your type. So you need to look at yourself and evaluate yourself and say, I need to attract my type. I want to be an excellent person. So am I obedient? Am I committed, humble, or am I honest? So you need to attract your type as a 25. So you see what I mean by attracting your type is that you attract good employees, attract good leaders. So there's sometimes that you need to get a mentorship. So by getting a good mentor, somebody that will mentor you, somebody that will guide you, somebody that will hold your hand and say, oh, I'm here to mentor. So when you have actually communicated, you have actually um that communication, you realize that most important aspect of this climbing the stair of success is communication. Then you need to ensure you attract your type. Check yourself, evaluate yourself. Am I obedient? Am I committed? Am I humble? Am I honest? And with that, you can actually come up and get a good mentorship. Get somebody that will mentor you throughout go for mentorship classes with the person. Maybe once a week, you sit down and the person mentors you on the right direction to take in life. I think that's for me.
So as 25-year-old Jadisola, communicate more. Attract the right type of people who are going to get you to move forward. Don't be distracted. Get the right circle of networks, mentors, sponsors. Get the right circle. Colleagues that you can bounce ideas off of. It's very important to have the right circle. And then she's said it all through this conversation today. Get yourself a mentor. Get yourself a mentor and don't and be deliberate about it. So that will advise you through this road to leadership. And also, like we've all also said, get yourself a sponsor too, because those are the people that literally open the doors for you. So moving to Christine, 25-year-old Christine, what would you tell her today?
Ah, I would tell her not to be afraid. She has, regardless of her age, she's earned the right to be where she is. Now I know that there's grace for those of us who are religious, there's grace and there's favor and all of those things come into play. But ultimately, don't be afraid. You've earned the right to be there. Just go forward. I found that at 25, when I started working, I used to deal with serious imposter syndrome, which meant that, in a meeting, I would know the answer. I would know it. And I always, for maybe a couple of years, I would always leave meetings thinking, I should have said that. I should have said this. I should have said that. So it took me some time to break out of that. And maybe again with maturity, with wisdom, with age comes certain things. But what I would tell my 25-year-old self, don't be afraid. You've earned the right to be there. Move forward. Speak up. Be confident. Don't be afraid. That's what I'll tell myself.
25-year-old Christine, be not afraid. Go ye forth and conquer the corporate world. Be confident.
Yes.
You deserve to be in the room. You're not there by accident. You deserve to be there. So own that space. Own that space. Be not afraid. Thank you, Christine. And Darren, 25-year-old Darren, what would you tell her now?
Oh gosh, since I'm past 25, so can I
Okay,
tell
21-year-old Darren.
can I
Okay.
tell Tenny what Darren was going through at that point and how Darren all came in? I think the most important thing for me when I was 25 was I was really battling with this notion of being very empathetic because that's one of my key strengths. And I had a boss who told me once, she's like, Darren, you're gonna look back and in your career and experience that this one key quality would propel you for global experiences. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I think at that point, I think how she used to define it was I had this attitude of I think she said keeping others the art of being other focused and keeping their best interest in mind. I remember at 25, I was still struggling in between. Did I really want to do HR for the rest of my life? And she's like, Darren, this one quality would really help you. So going back to 25 and experiencing that I really wanted to be a core HR professional and empathy was a key strength for me. So I would say that Darren, I'm proud of you that you stuck to that key quality and got into to where you are right now. The second one is seeking genuine relationships, like really be very intentional, if it's personal, professional, in the work organization, and ensuring that, like I said, have all the people's best interests at heart. Because I have colleagues who I've worked with when I was 25, and we get together, and I'm happy that the relationship has propelled me to be the person I am right now. So really looking out for the best interest in others and really having genuine relationship. I think something else also is very deliberate, careful selection with for those who want to get married, life partnership. Because I think that's really, really helped me in my in my life and my career. Is at 25, that was at the age where I was like intentionally dating for my next level. And I think I'm happy where I guess where I am right now. But I think, like I said, genuine relationship and more than anything else, just really having that empathetic spirit and not being ashamed to have that. Because I used to really struggle with that because my personality, I'm very laid back and I have a whole lot of empathy where it comes across as me being weak and not having the right kind of leadership. But when that line manager told me that once, and that kind of propelled me, and I'm happy I stuck to that because that's got me to where I am right now. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to recap. Look, she's put some pearls of wisdom and she went there with the truth. I told you this is an honest conversation this afternoon.
Yeah.
Seek genuine relationships, personal, professional, who you marry. is very important. We didn't go into that. Maybe that's another discussion. Back of office out there. Maybe that's another conversation for women in leadership and women in the workplace. But choose the right partner that's going to support you. I think it's so important. You have your goals and visions, and if you're misaligned,
Mm.
you're not going to get very far because you're going to struggle, because the person you're with isn't going to support those goals and aspirations. So it's very important. But having the right and know the character trait that will propel you in the direction you want to go. Empathy is very important in HR, human resources. If you don't have it, I don't even know what you're doing in HR. But unless you're on the, calling number, bell curve and kicking people out number part of HR. But if you are in the holistic part, empathy is so important. So identifying that trait that you need. If it's analytics, if you're going to be a quant, obviously you need to be super analytical. If you don't have that character trait and building on it, how are you going to be a quant or that sort of space? So I think that is so important, and focusing on that. And like we said, seeking genuine. I like what you said about genuine relationships, because I still have the same referees how many years into my career, because those are the ones that know me. I don't even bother because, I've either done transactions with them moving forward. They've seen me grow from a little runt as a starter to this lady that's there now. One even called me that the other day. Someone called me an OG, and that was quite funny as well. They're like, you've now become an OG in this business. And it's so funny. That was one of my first bosses that is now calling me an old girl in the business. So you have to really maintain those relationships and don't be seen as a one-sided sponge. Where can you also offer yourself to the people you're maintaining these relationships for? You're growing, you're evolving, your skills are changing. So you have to be aware that instead of just reaching out to them, oh, can I get advice? How can I advise? What can you do for them? You now know their business. You're now a subject matter expert. You also give back because they've been giving to you through all your career if you've maintained those relationships. So at some point, you need to find how you're adding value to them as well. And I would like to say one thing. So from my 25-year-old self, which I did say, so it's probably why I'm here where I am now, be unapologetic about what you want. That's what I'll tell my 25-year-old self. Know what you want and go for it. You deserve it. Like I said about my mom and the sitting on the chair. I think my mom's great. She gives such pearls of wisdom in her own Yoruba mommy way. But that's one thing you have to do. I want this and I'm going for it. I have to put structures in place. I remember when I had my child, she was very clear. You cannot be a demand feeding lady when you want to maintain this corporate career. This child needs to be on time feeding. Embrace the nanny, embrace the grandmas, and move on. And it's just the fact of life. If you want this thing, you have to make sure everything is compartmentalized to make sure that you're successful. It doesn't mean you can't drop balls. You need to put them down, but put the structures in place. And I'll say that's important. Don't feel you have to choose between one thing or another. There's seasons where you take breaks, but you need to be able to make sure that this is where I'm going. I might slow down at certain points and I'll accelerate at certain points, but I know that ultimately this is where I'm going to. And finally, we have to recognize females are some of the highest achievers in our industry. So own it. You deserve it. You go for it. Put the structures in place. Learn, listen, follow, lead by example. Visibility. I'm recapping everything that's gone around this room this afternoon. Skills. You cannot be a subject matter expert and you do not hone in your skills. It is not possible. You must put yourself out there. Being shy in the room is not going to help your ministry. If I don't know what you can do, I will not think to nominate you for anything. And also, when given the opportunity to expand your scope of work, do not reject it thinking that this person is wicked and they want to give me more work with less pay. That person is thinking about you as the next leader. And if you deliver in that space in acting or taking on someone's role while they're out of the office and you deliver, who will they think of when the gap comes up? The person that delivered when it wasn't their job. So it shows that beyond your job, you can deliver on a wider scope of work. And and we've said this over and over and over, is professionalism. Put that forward. That's what people are seeing. Yes, we're seeing your gender, but we're seeing your professionalism first. And you should always make that your watchword. And also, like we said, definitely the whole thing about mentorship, sponsorship, networks. Mentorship, sponsorship, networks. You must have those in place in your corporate life. And also, like, someone's asked about books. Does anybody want to give one book that people should read on leadership? I would say go ahead. Let me leave it to the room. One book on leadership that everyone should read, or that you've read that really propelled you or inspired you. Christine?
Mine is not a book on leadership per se, but I loved Cheryl Sanders' Lean In. Lean In helped me in so many ways. It helped me to it helped me to think deeply about what it meant to be a woman in leadership. I know that that wasn't necessarily the focus of the book, but there were nuggets that she shared that helped me. So yes.
Okay. Jadisola, you're telling us learn something new every day. Which book on leadership have you read that you're like, whoa, that's changed my life?
Okay, I'm a fan of John Maxwell. So he has quite a number of leadership books. So I think you can pick any of the leadership book. The most favorite one I like is How Successful People Think. So to be successful, there are ways you have to think. So I think that you can take that book and read it. It's quite interesting.
Thank you. How successful people think. That's straight to the point there. And Darren, a book that changed your life.
Oh, cool. I would say for me, I like to read memoirs. I always like to see what people have done and learn from challenges, mistakes, and definitely triumphs as well. So I like the one by My Life in Full by Indra Nooyi. She was the old former chair for PepsiCo. I think it was called Work, Family, and Our Future. So there was some really good nuggets on really how to manage those three and to be successful as a leader.
Thank you, ladies. So I'd like to thank our three executives at Tangerine, Darren Otegbala, our group head of human resources, Christine Sijuade, our group head for legal and compliance, and Jadisola Olarnir, our group chief technical officer for the life business. And I'm Yewande Adeosi, the group executive director for commercial. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope that there were some pearls of wisdom you've noted down in terms of women in leadership as a whole and women in leadership in the finance sector primarily. And we hope that we were successful in letting you know that it is possible. It is possible. You don't just, it doesn't happen by accident, but you need to really be deliberate and intentional about your movement in a leadership space. So thank you and have a good afternoon. Thank you from
Thank
Tangerine.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.